The story begins with the protagonist, weary from a long search for affordable housing, stumbling upon an old apartment building tucked away in a neglected part of the city. The rent is suspiciously low, far below what other places charge, but desperation overrides caution. The landlord, a gaunt man with hollow eyes, hands over the keys with a tight-lipped smile, offering no tour, no welcome, just a mumbled warning about quiet hours before disappearing into the dimly lit hallway. The apartment itself is worn but livable, peeling wallpaper, a persistent draft, and the faint scent of something burnt clinging to the air. The walls are thin, and the floorboards creak underfoot as if something beneath them shifts in response to movement. The windows, though grimy, let in just enough light to reveal dust motes swirling in the air, giving the space an almost dreamlike, ghostly quality. The story begins with the protagonist, weary from a long search for affordable housing, stumbling upon an old apartment building tucked away in a neglected part of the city. The rent is suspiciously low, far below what other places charge, but desperation overrides caution. The landlord, a gaunt man with hollow eyes, hands over the keys with a tight-lipped smile, offering no tour, no welcome, just a mumbled warning about quiet hours before disappearing into the dimly lit hallway. The apartment itself is worn but livable, peeling wallpaper, a persistent draft, and the faint scent of something burnt clinging to the air. The walls are thin, and the floorboards creak underfoot as if something beneath them shifts in response to movement. The windows, though grimy, let in just enough light to reveal dust motes swirling in the air, giving the space an almost dreamlike, ghostly quality. Neighbors are scarce, but the few who appear are unsettling in their own ways. There's Mrs. Kessler, an elderly woman who lingers in the hallway too long, her milky eyes darting toward the protagonist's door as she mutters about nighttime noises. Down the hall, a reclusive man with sunken cheeks never speaks, only stares before slipping silently into his apartment. The air in the building feels thick, heavy, like the walls themselves are holding their breath. At first, the protagonist dismisses the oddities, the flickering hallway lights, the distant sound of something skittering inside the walls, the way their reflection in the bathroom mirror seems to linger a second too long when they turn away. But then, late at night, the real unease sets in. A whisper, just on the edge of hearing, a shadow that moves when nothing is there, a sudden, icy coldness in a room that should be warm. And then, the first undeniable sign, deep, jagged scratches on the inside of the bedroom door. Scratches that weren't there before. The wood is splintered, as if whatever made them pressed down with terrible strength. That night, the air in the apartment grows thick, suffocating. The protagonist wakes to the sensation of being watched, and from the darkness at the foot of the bed, two pinpricks of light flicker like dying embers. A shape, hunched and unnatural, lingers for a breath before melting into the shadows. Sleep doesn't return. This is no longer just a building with quirks. Something is here, and it knows they've noticed. The protagonist can't shake the feeling that the apartment is watching them. After another sleepless night, they decide to seek answers. Mrs. Kessler, the elderly woman from down the hall, seems to know more than she lets on. Her wary glances at their door, the way she hurries inside before sunset. They catch her one afternoon as she shuffles back from the mailboxes, her arms clutching a faded grocery bag. At first, she pretends not to hear their greeting, her knotted fingers tightening around the bag's handles. But when they mention the scratching in the walls, she goes very still. "You've heard it too, then?" Her voice is brittle, like dry leaves crushed underfoot. She glances over her shoulder before leaning in, her breath sour with the tang of old tea and medicine. "It's worse at night," always worse at night. The protagonist presses her, and reluctantly, the story spills out, in fragments, in whispers. The building has always had tenants who didn't leave, not by choice. She names names: a young couple from 3B, gone without a trace; a quiet man in 5A who screamed for hours before the police came, only to find his apartment empty. The landlord scrubbed the records, paid off inspectors. No one asks questions when the rent's this cheap. "They say it lives in the basement," she murmurs, her milky eyes darting toward the stairwell. "Comes up through the walls. It likes the dark, likes the quiet." When they ask what it is, she hesitates. Then, barely audible, "The shadow man, the one who watches." Before they can ask more, she pulls away, suddenly agitated. "Don't go looking. Don't ever go down there after dark." Then she's gone, her door clicking shut behind her, leaving the protagonist alone in the hallway, the air humming with the weight of her warning. And from somewhere deep below their feet, the faintest sound of something shifting in the dark. Curiosity is a slow poison, and by now it has seeped too deep to ignore. The protagonist waits until the building is asleep, until the last flickering television glow under a neighbor's door winks out, until the only sound is the occasional groan of pipes. The basement door, usually bolted shut, hangs slightly ajar tonight, as if beckoning. The landlord's warning echoes, "Nothing down there but rats and rust." But Mrs. Kessler's words hum louder. It likes the dark. The stairwell swallows the beam of their flashlight like tar. Each step groans underfoot, the wood slick with something damp. The air grows thicker, colder, not just stale, but spoiled, carrying the metallic tang of old blood and something sweetly rotten, like meat left to fester. Then the altar. It's nestled in the far corner, half hidden behind crumbling boxes. A crude slab of stone, its surface stained black with decades of candle wax and darker fluids. Animal bones, some old and brittle, some still glistening with shreds of sinew, are arranged in deliberate patterns. Above it, the wall is gouged with the same symbols from the protagonist's doorframe, carved so deep the plaster bleeds dust. The flashlight flickers. A draft slithers past, though there are no windows. The shadows at the edges of the room seem to pulse, detaching themselves from the walls. And then, a sound. Not a whisper, not a growl, but a voice, guttural and wet, as if forced through a throat full of broken teeth. "You were curious." The beam of light catches something. A figure, hunched and too long, its skin stretched taut over jutting bones. Its eyes reflect the light like a cat's, but the pupils are wrong, vertical slits, widening hungrily. The protagonist runs. The door slams behind them with a force that shakes the stairwell. They tell themselves it was a trick of the light. A stray cat, maybe. But when they wake the next morning, their palms are caked with basement dirt. And on their bedroom door, a single word clawed into the wood: mine. Sleep no longer offers refuge. The protagonist lies rigid in bed, every nerve alight, listening to the muffled creaks and whispers that have become the apartment's nightly chorus. The air is thick, oppressive, like wading through oil. Then, a new sound. The slow, wet drag of something moving across the floor. At first, they convince themselves it's just the building settling, the wind rattling the pipes. But then the temperature plummets. Their breath fogs in the air, and the sheets grow stiff with frost. Something is in the room with them. A shadow, darker than the surrounding darkness, peels itself away from the corner. It moves wrong, not walking, but unfolding, its limbs elongating with a series of sickening cracks. The streetlight outside casts just enough glow to outline its silhouette. A hunched spine, too many joints in its arms, fingers that taper into cruel, hooked points. It stops at the foot of the bed. The protagonist's pulse roars in their ears, their body locked in primal terror. The demon tilts its head, a grotesque parody of curiosity, and the faint light catches its face, stretched skin like old leather, a mouth slit too wide, filled with jagged, needle-like teeth. Its eyes are hollow pits at first, until they flare open, glowing a dull, hellish red. Then it speaks, not in words, but in their mind, a voice like grinding glass. "You've been looking for me." The scent of rot and burning hair fills the room. The demon leans closer, its breath icy against their skin. A clawed hand reaches out, hovering just above their chest. And the alarm clock blares. Morning light spills through the curtains. The room is empty, but the sheets reek of sulfur, and on their wrist, 5 faint, bruise-colored marks where its fingers almost touched. The demon's visit leaves no room for doubt. This is no hallucination, no paranoid delusion. The protagonist needs answers, and the living won't provide them. The local library's archives smell of dust and yellowed paper. Microfilm whirs as they scroll through decades of newspapers, searching for any mention of the apartment building. At first, nothing stands out, just the usual obituaries and petty crime reports. But then, buried in a brittle 1973 issue of the Evening Chronicle, a headline snags their attention. "Police baffled by grisly discovery in Hillside Apartments." The article is brief, vague. A tenant reported foul odors from apartment 4C. Officers found the remains of a man, partially consumed, ritualistic symbols carved into the walls, the floor sticky with candle wax, and darkened stains. The case was closed within weeks, ruled an animal attack, despite the victim's missing heart. A grainy photo shows the building's facade, police tape fluttering in the wind. But it's the next discovery that chills them, a follow-up piece, tucked in the back pages. A single paragraph noting that the building's superintendent, a reclusive man named Elias Voss, was questioned but never charged. The case vanished from the papers after that. A Google search turns up nothing on Voss, just dead ends and a single, unsettling forum post from 2009. "Hillside Apartments. Don't rent there. The super's grandson runs it now. Things happen in the basement. You can hear them laughing." Back at the apartment, they pry up a loose floorboard near the radiator and uncover a rusted locket. Inside, a faded photo of a woman, her eyes scratched out. Engraved on the back, EV 1971. This wasn't just a haunting. It was an invitation, and the landlord's family has been feeding it for generations. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.